Hey, so I'm going to talk about the Rosand bounce and ricochet. I think it's a good time to do so because we've talked about the long bows a little bit, and we've talked about what is it, detache now. And as you might have noticed, with all the bow exercises that we were doing earlier, right? This kind of stuff, and then climbing, all that kind of stuff. The balance of your hand, if you have been doing those things, should be actually improving a lot. And with the balance improved, with good knowledge of how to do long bows, and also detache, I think it's time to talk about one of the most key aspects of the violin bow stroke, and it relates to Rosand bounce. I guess that's what some of us call it, as well as ricochet, because it has a lot to do with letting the stick go. That's the key. So when you're playing, I wasn't supposed to do that first. When you're playing like a long bow, right? We always talk about how you scoop, get into the string, but also always following. You should always follow the shape of the bow. Right? It's naturally a little curved, and therefore we give it a little scoop. Okay. So this is the first key of good violin playing. Is you create friction, weight enough friction, and then the string is moved, and then you have to let it go. Okay, that's what happens when you do this scoopy bowing, right? We already talked about this. And getting that feeling and the sound in your ear is sometimes it's something that you can't do very step by step. It's it's not a perfectly linear process. However, something like ricochet and Rosand's bounce can help a lot, because if you look at Rosand's bounce, right, it'll just go on like that. Obviously, you need a little bit of rosin to do that, but all you're doing is you're giving it a little kick. You can start off the string, from the string, it doesn't really matter. If you're doing it for the first time, I would advise that you start by coming from farther off the string and then trying it. But you could just basically pinch the bow, give it a little wrist snap, like, and then it would go as well. So that being said, the key is, the key benefit of this is that you are really learning, we are really learning to use the bow in a way that we are letting the stick do its thing, because the stick is always bouncing, always just rattling, always vibrating, right? And even in the long bow, even when we're forcefully pushing down into it, or it's still always vibrating. And the key is, how can I control the vibrations as I wish, but also at the same time let the bow do its bounce and vibrations without suffocating it. And so this is just one very visible way of letting that happen. With the Rosand bounce, there are some key things. Obviously, number one is that you need to try it a lot. It's kind of one of those things that the touch develops, and so it's one of those things that sometimes people get it fast, sometimes get it slow. It doesn't really matter. But for most people, it takes quite a bit of persistence, because at first everybody's like, what? Is that ricochet? I can do 4 times. But then when you ask them to it's not control it, and just let go, and just only direct the direction of the bow, they're like, what? It's not really working, and then they start to control it a little bit. So it takes a little bit of persistence to find the right feeling in the hand. Okay, but here are general guidelines. First, try to keep your hair flat. Okay, start from the middle of the bow-ish, you know, where the bounce is pretty good because you're relying on the bounce, right? And after you give it a little kick, all you're gonna do is sometimes, you know, we let go of everything. You know, we let go of, you know, either everything except the middle finger or everything except for the index finger, because all we're doing is we're just gently directing the bow so that we don't completely let go and it doesn't do something stupid like this, or, you know, something like that. So we're just giving barely enough direction. Okay, to keep the bow straight and to move it slowly. And so those are just that's it for the key physical instructions. So in the middle, focus on the middle finger the most. Sometimes index finger, yeah, helps, but I think middle finger the most. Everything else doesn't matter as much in this stroke. And once you get the kick going and you hear the vibrations start to kick in, all you're going to do is gently guide the direction of the bow and move it slowly. Okay? Now the sensation is actually very important. So this is not like something you can do, but something you can start to feel. As the bow bounces, you're going to feel the bow kind of vibrate under your finger a little bit, and as your finger bounces like that, what's key is that, well, as the finger bounces, what the key feeling is that it's almost like not like a bounce, it's like a rattle under your finger, and you're gonna feel every single bounce is like a slight sticky pull on the string, like a little grab and release, little grab and release, little grab and release on the string, and so and since that's the case, you know, as you play, that's basically that feeling of rattling under your finger, that little grab, is what you are trying to feel. That continual feeling, and yeah, as you feel that, what's going to happen is that your hand is going to become very sensitive to this feeling of the bow jumping by itself, and it basically awakens in you, kind of like you know, like when you do ball control practice in sports, right? As you hit the sweet spot repeatedly, like you start, it's like you find a little bit of pleasure in hitting it at that sweet spot every time, or kicking that you know, at the sweet spot. And every other way of hitting in the wrong spot with too much force and not in the sweet spot becomes less pleasurable, because you're finding your touch. Okay, that's like people who have silky ball control. That's where this originates from, like this feeling of really letting the ball do its own thing but controlling it, right? So that's what will happen as you do this more, and you can apply it eventually as you practice that a lot. This will obviously help your ricochet, because ricochet is a much simpler version of this, right? Ricochet, you don't even need to feel sensitively. You don't even get to that point. You could actually grip it tight with a bad bow and then just kind of get a stiff ricochet, stiff bounce, okay, with more grip. However, this Rosand bounce is very hard to do with that. So ricochet in itself is going to become much better, and your long bows for sure will be much better. And once you become very good at the bounce, you can test it out on something like, you know, the Paganini Concerto as an arpeggio. See how I get approximately 2 bounces per stroke, per note. Excuse me. That's like because it's more extended than normal ricochet, which is a. you know, it's just 4-1, 4-1, which is fairly easy. You can do it with a stiff arm. But this is more like the Rosand bounce in action. So yeah, so that should be a good final test to take an arpeggio and try to get 2 bounces per note all the way up the arpeggio. And yeah, so try it out and let me know what you think. Send me your comments, criticisms, and complaints. And yeah, let's go from there. All right, bye.